I don't remember really how many questions. I Mr. President, I try to answer to everything. I'm not sure, but sorry if I forgot some questions.
Yes, there were many questions. Your Excellency, President Zelensky, President of Ukraine, ambassadors and ministers from both Ukraine and South Africa who are here, and senior officials of both our governments, and of course members of the media. It is my distinct honor to receive President Zelensky here in South Africa, together with his delegation. President Zelensky and I have met on a number of occasions in various summits, and he's always expressed the desire to come to South Africa. And because of the links that we have had with Ukraine and himself, we thought it wise that he should come. This official working visit reflects our shared commitment to enhancing bilateral relations between our two countries for the benefit of our peoples. This, in many ways, is a historic visit because this is the first time the head of state of Ukraine is visiting South Africa in the 33 years since we established formal diplomatic relations between South Africa and Ukraine. We acknowledge with great appreciation the support that we received from Ukraine during our liberation struggle. We recall that a number of exiled South Africans received training in education in Ukraine in a number of fields and areas. In June 2023, I had the honor of meeting President Zelensky in Kyiv as part of the African Peace Initiative. Since then, we have maintained ongoing dialogue between our two countries and our diplomats. We've been engaging together with many other countries in the various preparatory talks for installing peace in Ukraine, and we've engaged in a number of other initiatives. For instance, when the African Peace Initiative leaders, African leaders were in Ukraine and Russia, one of the issues that we put on the table was a comprehensive and unconditional ceasefire. We also put on the table the return of the children who were taken to Russia. We also put on the table the exchange of those soldiers who were either captured by Russia or Ukraine. So the dealings that we have had with other countries, with Ukraine, have been quite extensive in a number of ways. We have just concluded with President Zelensky successful talks during which we exchange views on how to consolidate and deepen the bilateral relations between our two countries. We also discussed how ministers from both sides can engage to deepen and broaden those relations. We noted a growing interest in expanding relations in peace diplomacy, post-conflict reconstruction and development, and the empowerment of our people, especially women. We also discussed the opportunities for cooperation in areas such as agriculture, trade, education, infrastructure, and energy, and other social engagements. We are pleased that our ministers have held discussions amongst themselves to strengthen the various areas in which we can cooperate between our two respective countries. We acknowledge the significant strides that Ukraine has taken, and in particular, President Zelensky, to expand relations with the African continent. We note the provision of grain in areas of food, the expansion of agricultural cooperation, and the opening up of the grain hub to the port of Mombasa in Kenya. These are direct outcomes of discussions that were held when we visited Kyiv in June 2023 as part of the African Peace Initiative. Our engagement today was an opportunity to discuss our shared interest in advancing peace, security, stability, and sustainable development on the continent, in Ukraine and across the world. We have reinforced our common commitment to the respect of the rule of law in international relations, multilateralism, the central role that the United Nations plays in global governance, and the maintenance of global peace and security. South Africa is deeply concerned about the continuing conflict in Ukraine, the continuing loss of civilian lives, the damage to critical infrastructure, and deteriorating humanitarian situation. South Africa believes that the only path to peace is through diplomacy, inclusive dialogue, and a commitment to the principles of the United Nations Charter. This includes the principle that all member states should settle their international disputes by peaceful means. From the experience of our own journey from the nightmare of apartheid to democracy, we value the importance of engaging all parties to conflicts to achieve peace and a just, enduring solution to wars and conflicts. If there is one thing that our history as South Africans has taught us, it is that diplomacy and dialogue are more powerful than any weapon that anyone can use. It is this understanding that informed South Africa to participate in the African Peace Initiative and South Africa's subsequent and continuing participation in the Ukraine peace formula. I had an opportunity to speak to President Trump yesterday, or this morning rather, to discuss the peace process in Ukraine. We both agreed that the war should be brought to an end as soon as possible to prevent further death and destruction. President Trump and I also agreed to meet soon to address the various other matters regarding our relations between South Africa and the United States. We both spoke about the need to foster good relations between our two countries. Earlier in the week, I had a call with President Vladimir Putin, where we both committed to work together towards a peaceful resolution of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. South Africa stands ready to continue to support all credible as well as inclusive multilateral efforts at achieving a just and sustainable comprehensive peace. And we call upon all parties, both Russia and Ukraine, to ensure that there is a comprehensive ceasefire, an unconditional ceasefire, so that discussions and negotiations can start between the two countries. President Zelensky, as he himself will say, told me that as Ukraine, they are ready to engage in discussions and negotiations with Russia, and they are also ready to have a comprehensive, unconditional ceasefire. This, we believe, is the best way towards ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. So we have today between myself and President Zelensky reaffirmed the bonds of friendship and solidarity that exist between our two countries. We look forward to continued engagement and cooperation that benefits our peoples and our two countries. President Zelensky, I hope that you will leave our shores of South Africa with good memories. Much as your visit has been really short, I do hope that in time to come, you will come back to visit the most beautiful country in the world, South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Dear Mr. President, Mr. President Ramaphosa, dear those attending this venue, dear team members, dear media representatives, it is an honor to me today to pay a visit to your nation today, still more that it comes on the eve of the Freedom Day, a festivity that truly reflects the core values of your nation. This is what unites us together, our will for freedom, for independence, for equality, for respect. These are all values understood in every corner of the world. We are fighting for our freedom in this full-scale war for more than 3 years. We are fighting against the occupation by Russia, against our people being prosecuted. There will again any sort of denigration of our people by the aggressors. We have a very fresh Russian attack this morning, more than 200 aerial targets, missiles, ballistic missiles, attack drones. Unfortunately, we have got losses, destruction at the capital, in other localities. In all of the regions of Ukraine, more than 80 people were wounded in the strikes. Unfortunately, we have people killed in Kiev, a boy and a girl, 21 and 19 years. They were siblings, so my sheer condolences to everyone who sustained losses. While I'm talking here, the recovery works continue. Because of that, I decided to shorten my visit to your beautiful country, but I do leave my Minister of Exterior to express our sheer respect and have all the meetings that had been planned, the meetings that are deemed very important at the level of our ministers, those meetings with opinion leaders, with studentship. We are thankful for your support of Ukraine, for you sharing our understanding that this war has to be ended as soon as possible. This was our primary topic to discuss with President Ramaphosa when he had been on a visit to Ukraine. I remember him saying those very important words about the need to reach a ceasefire as soon as possible, an unconditional ceasefire. I agreed to it. I said that everything depends on Russia's intention and desire, because it is in Moscow where they have to make a decision on silence, making relevant orders to the Russian army. You know that this year, the Eastern time, we had this opportunity of a ceasefire. We were absolutely ready for it. We acted in a mirror way, responding only to Russian attacks. Ukraine defended itself. Unfortunately, after that, Russia renewed its assaults on the front line, the strikes against the civilian infrastructure. Today we discussed with the President the importance to unite global efforts to have this aggregate pressure on Russia for the sake of peace, to stop the war. We also discussed the importance of the G20 level. South Africa is presiding in G20, and G20's role in the defense of peace can be much greater. We strongly count on that. It is also very important, our bilateral agenda. Ukraine is keenly interested in energy security matters, in fertilizer production. We have strong results in defense production and defense technologies. We are ready to work with partners on that. We are ready to work with the South Africa to build more modern production facilities in your country for better resilient power sector. Ukraine offers the South Africa to have a joint mineral hub to produce and transport fertilizers to support the whole of your region. There are potential projects in the agricultural sector. These can lead to better bilateral trade results between Ukraine and the South Africa. We are ready to work together to create modern security systems for such facilities like your national parks, urban environment settings, new technological advancements in the area. We are ready to talk on that. We are also ready to work together to drastically increase power generation in your country, from atomic energy to the renewable one. Affordable energy is always contributing to economic growth, and I already tasked my professional team to look into a joint strong project between our countries. I presented President Ramaphosa with a list of 400 Ukrainian children. It's very important for us to look after them. They are being kept against their will in Russia, and we have this horrible problem with Russians kidnapping on the temporarily occupied territories, hundreds of thousands, dozens of thousands actually of kids. We need to get them back. Likewise, that we need to get back the POWs, the civilians captured and contained in Russia in inhumane condition. South Africa is a co-leader of a global coalition to bring Ukrainian kids home. I truly hope that President Ramaphosa will help us to bring them home indeed. I'd like to thank you for this visit, for the opportunity to meet you. We strongly believe that the President, the South Africa, all other partners in Africa will help us to stop Russia, to force Putin to engage in the full-scale ceasefire. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. We'll now open the floor to questions. We had agreed that we'll take 3 questions from the South African side, 3 questions from our international colleagues, and the first question will go to Ms. Jones from the BBC. If you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. This is Maini Jones with the BBC. This question is for President Zelensky, but also President Ramaphosa. It'd be good to get your thoughts on it. Do you think that this night's attacks on Kyiv by Russia were deliberate, tied to your visit here? And if so, why?
We'll take another question. Sophie? Can we please get the mic to the front? Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie Mkwena from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. My question is directed to President Zelensky and President Ramaphosa. The issue of the peace process has been a thorny one with different interest groups in terms of regions and countries. But President Ramaphosa, you spoke to President Trump, you spoke to President Zelensky, you spoke to President Putin. and you do engage with the European Union. Is there a possibility for ceasefire? And who will be the guarantors? And this question is directed to both President Ramaphosa and President Zelensky. And lastly, on the President Trump's issue in particular, and the question is directed to the two leaders. The United States of America in recent time has been pushing for an agreement. And it looks like yesterday Washington was impatient. Is there a room for the US posture in terms of playing a more productive role to assist and to both leaders? Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will take those first two questions, Your Excellencies, starting with President Zelensky.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you indeed. Every such attack is not an isolated event. Unfortunately, this is something that is happening from time to time. The Russian attacks come every night. 100, 120 Iranian shaheeds, or some similar long-reaching drones are being used by Russia every night. To say that more than 100 targets they have each night adds here all sorts of missiles, the ballistic ones included. So unfortunately, I would not try to tie any specific attack to any specific event. This attack of today's night was one of the complex ones, one of the most outrageous. If I'm not mistaken, 215 attack drones, ballistic and other missiles were launched against the civilians, the civilian infrastructure. So a serious strike. What it was linked to, I think, to link it to my visit to the South Africa, I wouldn't do it because, surely Putin doesn't like Ukraine's presence in Africa, and surely he doesn't want Ukraine to build any good, primarily humane, also economic relationships with countries on your continent. Russia has always tried, not just on the African continent, but also on other continents in Latin America, everywhere, practically. They've been trying to be exclusively present. In your country, elsewhere, this is their policy of theirs. The question if one allows it or not, it's a matter for each country to decide. We, from our side, we are not, pretending to be exclusive. We are just willing to have good neighborly productive relations with your country. This is the sense of competition. This is the sense of freedom. In my view, this is the principle behind common sense. You choose life. People should be free to live where it's most comfortable for them, where they feel they have shared values. You fought for your principles. You've got huge victory. This is what we are also doing. Also, in whichever direction, we should be free to decide who we want to cooperate with, to live together. Because of that, we are defending just our own rights. Meanwhile, Russia, understanding that Ukraine is fighting for its rights, exerts pressure on us, on the United States. This is what I link the recent strike with. We had a meeting in London yesterday, and indeed, the European nations and the United States of America present there, Ukraine, the UK, France, the United States were represented there. There was a discussion yesterday. It did end. It wasn't an easy one, but it was constructive, And it ended not in discrepancies, but in the intention to continue working together. So I'm sure that Russia counted on some huge scandal yesterday. I remember some emotions seeping into the media on that, but emotions, well, they will remain emotions. Russia dislikes any union around Ukraine, because if Ukraine is alone, it will become a much easier target for Russia. Though, frankly speaking, for 3 years of this war, we've shown our big strength, and actually we are stronger than we were in the early days. Believe us, we are much stronger now, but probably it is us who want the most this war to stop. This is our sheer desire. And that was the starting point of our talk and meeting with President Ramaphosa. It was the primary consideration, how to stop this war, how to curse Russia for this comprehensive, unconditional ceasefire. And the second question for our discussion wasn't about energy safety, though it's an important matter. It was about children, how to save their lives. The South Africa has already helped us a lot, and we want you to help us even more. Because of that, we have this priority list, and it goes as it goes. Yesterday in London, again, the priority topic number one was how to end this war. Not how to launch another bout of it, but how to end it. This is what's about the attack. Again, it doesn't work like this. If Russia declares its readiness to a ceasefire, first of all, they have to stop dealing these massive strikes against Ukraine. I'm not sure whose patience is wearing thin and where, but I think that the patience ultimately will wear thin among the Ukrainians, because it is us who are suffering these strikes. I wouldn't wish anyone to feel it, but it is us who suffer those Russian missiles. Sorry for probably taking too much time to respond, Mr. President.
Every act of war is horrible, it is awful, and I would not attribute the attacks that happened in Kyiv to President Zelensky's visit here, because the war manifests itself in many ways and at any time, and that is why we're calling for an end to this war. This is a war that has not only affected Russia or Ukraine, it has also affected a number of other countries. That is why the African Peace Initiative leaders went to Kyiv and Moscow to plead for war and to call on the leaders, to plead for the end of the war rather, and to call on the leaders to sit around the table and negotiate the end to this war. All wars do come to an end, and it depends at what stage they come to an end, and we say it should be sooner rather than later, because the continuation of this war continues to wreak havoc, destruction of lives, infrastructure, economies of both countries are negatively affected, and indeed it affects trade between those two countries and many other countries. And it is therefore important that this war should be brought to an end, and it is a good signal from President Zelensky that Ukraine is agreeable to a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire that is, so that discussions and negotiations can then ensue. This, we believe, is a very positive signal that should be embraced. My sister Sophie asks who would be the guarantors of this peace process. I think the world as a whole is ready to act as guarantors. We as South Africa would be willing to play our role in supporting the peace process between Ukraine and Russia. And I do believe that leaders on the African continent who went to Russia and Ukraine would be willing to play that positive role as well. For us, it is important that this war should be brought to an end, and we would like to see an agreement, first for a ceasefire, and secondly, to bring the war to an end completely. You ask, is there room for the US to play a productive role? I do believe that yes, the United States, indeed Europe, and of course the African continent would be willing and prepared to play a productive role. And this is what we as South Africa are also prepared to do. We've been tangentially involved in this whole process of seeking to bring about peace between the two countries, as we have participated in a number of initiatives, starting off with the building peace, as well as dealing with issues, what other people may think are mundane, like the return of the children. We've been dealing with that as South Africa, so in many ways we are involved in ensuring that there is a peace process that is effective between the two countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kate Bartlett.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, President Zelensky, do you have any
Just
comment?
an intro, Kate. Please introduce yourself.
NPR asked whether do we agree that Ukraine may have to cede territory. That I see as something that amounts to a precondition. And I think what we should focus on is that there is a willingness and a commitment from Ukraine for an unconditional ceasefire. An unconditional ceasefire sets a very good and positive tone to negotiations to commence. It is a confidence-building measure that should be a key ingredient in a negotiation process. So I see this as a great progress. When I last met President Zelensky in New York on the side of the United Nations General Assembly, he was grappling with this whole question of...
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update.